Hello everyone, this is Ian. In this video, I'll be talking about the new features for the version 1.6.0 of Random Flow. And let's start off with Auto Mirror. Auto Mirror now has a user interface or graphical user interface. As you can see, it's following the mouse cursor, and it displays the commands and its hotkeys. So this is the first phase as from before. The first phase requires you to select an area of the mesh you want mirrored. So for example, this side here. And once you click the X icon here, will be the one you clicked. All will indicate the area you clicked on the mesh, and the strips line will indicate the direction towards the center origin of the object where our 3D widget will be located. So this is the XYZ 3D widget. As you can see, it's white now because we have to set the axis toggles to mirror this area here. So as you can see here, axis mirror. We haven't toggled anything yet, but the hotkeys are XYZ. Reset is R, cancel, escape RMB. So RMB is right mouse button, click, confirm is space and enter. So if I press X, you can see that the the red line here lights up, and you can see that it also aligns to this 3D widget here. So XYZ is RGB. So for example, Y is green and Z is blue. So if we mirror this in the XYZ axis, we'll get this. So this is the area we've mirrored. And if we mirror this again, for example, in this area here, you can see that the 3D widget is already colored. That's because it's indicating that this mesh is already using a mirror modifier, or is already mirrored, and is using the XYZ axis toggles. But if I don't mess around with the axis toggles and just press space to confirm, so this is our real geometry from before. If I click here and press space to confirm, our real geometry now lies on this side. Click here. So if I click here and deactivate the x-axis, we get this. This is from the centerline cut for making the cut use in the x-axis from before. So to mirror x. And if we turn off all the axis toggles by pressing XYZ, so it's none, or you can use R to reset it to none, and press space to confirm, it will leave you with a complete mesh. Whereas if you remove the mirror modifier here, it will leave you with that. So to avoid that kind of behavior, if you reset the axis toggles using the auto mirror operator in random flow, it will instead give you a complete object instead of the cut one. So I think it's much better that way. Okay, so another one, let's go to random loop and random panels. Let's mirror this first. Auto mirror X, Y, and Z. And I'm going to use one of my presets here. Okay, so we have a cut method, which is angle. This is the old version, the angle. And this is the new version, wrap around. So this is related to the property cut angle. Now you can choose between two methods. The old one is the angle. So at 30 degrees, the islands are going to be cut at those sharp edges which meets the maximum angle threshold or minimum angle threshold, which is the 30 degrees. So it's going to be cut there. And if I increase this 90 degrees, you can see that the islands are no longer cut in those sharp areas, but it's causing some distortions because, for example, here, of the way the islands are designed. So let's see here. So the way the islands are shaped, when it turns like that in a very sharp turn, you get a distortion in the corners here. So to avoid that, the script instead, using the wraparound method, let's set it back to 30 degrees. So at 90 degrees, angle and wraparound kind of behaves the same, but the lower the angle threshold becomes, the effect of wraparound becomes more obvious. So 30 degrees. So instead of, what it does is, instead of the islands ending or being cut in this area here, it seeks a geometry around the corner and then includes that in the island. So as you can see here, instead of ending the island here, it wraps around. Actually, let's maintain the quad structure here. So instead of being cut or ending the island here, just to be sure that the island doesn't have a cut in those sharp corners, the script wraps around those sharp corners, meeting the angle threshold, and creates a new piece of island here. As you can see, it's wrapped around, and it creates a much better look than having a uniform cut using the angle. As you can see, it's cut in all those sharp angles versus wraparound. So you'd still get, because of the way the geometry is created or the islands are created, you'd still get distortions on some topology. So for example, cube active. Let's quantify this. So in some really exotic types of geometries, you will get distortion, especially in the very tight areas. There, those distortions are coming from this place here, and we can avoid that by lowering the inset depth, because it's too packed around here, and as you can see, this one is having trouble looking for a face to wrap around on that tight area. So it works optimally with large, blocky, angular shapes. But if you have something like this, I suggest that you just you randomize this area separately to avoid distortions. So, or play around with the seed until you get something that doesn't have those distortions. Or use 90 degrees and play around with the seed. But of course, you'd still get some distortions. We have here, it's wrapping around in this area here. So just so you know, and also because this is how the script subdivides. So if I use, for example, base cut sub 2, this is how it looks like subdivided in the script. There you go. And it needs, based on the topology, if the topology does not have enough faces for the script to wrap around, it also creates some distortions. And this is because of how weird the islands are created. Look at the shapes here, and it doesn't go well with sharp corners when it's trying to wrap around that. So just remember that when you're using the wraparound technique, but for most situation it works fine. So it is also included in random panels. So wrap around. Let's increase the island size and get rid of the center line. So as you can see, I think it's much better than using the angle method or the old method. But of course, for some geometry that the distortions just you can just get rid of the distortion and it's still persisting. Just use the old method. Radial. So remember, this works optimally with large blocky shapes, and it could have problems with really tight areas with a lot of details because of the way the islands are created. Because of the way the islands, look at the shapes. Look at that. And that doesn't bode well with really tight areas with a lot of turns. And it will create distortions like you see happening using the random loop extrude. 30 degrees. Okay. And we move on to random tubes, random cables. So random cables now has limit origin to islands turned off by default and bevel as 0.01 by default. So if you click, so from before this is turned on. So once you click it, it won't turn on because the origin is limited to a different sets of islands. So for example, if I duplicate this, No face is selected. What? Okay, that's odd. There. So this means that the origins or the start and end of the cables are only going to be created if there are separate islands, face island selections. But if I click this, then cables can originate on a particular island. So to avoid confusion, especially for new users, I turned it off by default. So right now, when you click any of this, it immediately shows up, and having a 0.01 bevel instead of 0, you already get this the thickness of the wires. By the way, to turn this into a mesh, use apply mesh and then OK. And then we have cables, random tubes, flanges, and panel screws. So panel screws, apply mesh. So panel screws now works with tag verts. So from before, this is designed only for quad slice. So this now works with panel screws as well. So if, for example, if I just click these 3 vertices here, then these highlighted edges will be the only one. These vertices and these highlighted edges will be the only one that's going to be affected by the panel screws operator. So tag verts, and if I create a screw, margin, and use tagged verts only, don't use angle threshold, and there. So you can control the way the format or the configuration of how the screws appear in your geometry. So for example, this vertex is only tag verts, there we go, or selecting this, tag verts, there we go. So selection boundary, turn off selection boundary. So the screw placement becomes per face, not per face island selection. Okay. And this is especially useful for cylinders or this kind of shape. So for example, if you want to skip by 1, you can do that, and then tag verts, place the screw, and tag verts only, and this is tag verts only turned off. Every point was placed with screws, and if you use tag verts only, and that creates the effect. So use angle threshold. So this is not 30 degrees. So for some 5 degrees, turn this off so it won't matter, even if it's 90 degrees or 5 degrees. And if we try to subdivide it, it won't subdivide because there's no edges highlighted. As you can see, there's no edges to subdivide because there are no edges that share the same that share two verts in the tagged verts. Okay, so that's it. I think this is going to be useful, especially in more complicated geometries for placing the screws. And we go to a bit of speed improvement with the flanges. So what I did was made the division between the points for creating the points inside the cables and tubes much larger, so it'll be much quicker creating flanges and couplings. There we go. It'll be much faster. So from before I was using I was dividing the value by 0.0001, and that's really and that creates a really high value or be a very small value and a lot of subdivision. So right now I'm only using 0.01. So even if you're using custom objects, flanges heavy, it'll be much faster. And it's the same thing for tubes. Tubes, random tubes, flanges, there we go. Okay, so a little bit of speed up, and then we come to extract faces. So this is actually derived from Git Polymesh in Islos Pro. And what it allows you to do with random flow using this operator is create asymmetrical design. For example, we have this model here, and we're going to extract from the cube again. We're going to use from the faces from the cube again. So you're forced to have the symmetry on because you can't really pick these faces here because this is virtual geometry created by the mirror modifier. You can select it. If you select it, if you select this, then you select all the faces here. So you can't really create asymmetrical details randomize asymmetrical details using the add-on. But with this, you can extract from the applied mesh of the source object. So extract faces, and we have the control here. Select faces, so 0, which is the count for how much faces you've selected. Insert faces, control mouse drag, shift, select plus, select loop, select plus influence, which is the control value for the select plus feature. X-ray. So you see that the cube object has been occluded by this, the result of the random loop extrude. So in order to see the selection, press X versus this one with X-ray off. And we have toggle help, which will bring you to the next page of the help UI. We have remove selection, RMB. So left mouse button is the select, and right mouse button is the deselect. Undo selection is A. It also undoes, it also creates a history based on the remove selection as well as the assign selection. There is no redo, there's only undo, and that is the J button. So for example, and I delete and I remove this, so we can rewind the history. There. For example, if I select a loop, so selecting a loop is Shift, Alt, left mouse button. Deselecting this will also require you to use the same button, but using right mouse, the right mouse button. So Shift, Alt, right mouse button. Okay. So in set, Control Shift, mouse drag affects the size of the extracted faces or face island. We have reset and set. So if you manage to mess it up like that, T to reset to 0. And then our reset selection clears all the selection. Escape, cancel, we have escape, confirm, space enter. Space or enter. Toggle help to get back to the first or the main UI. Okay, so we can create asymmetrical details. So without extracting and just using these faces here, let's create tubes. And we have symmetrical detail. But if you want to create asymmetrical detail, oops, I forgot the screencast. For selecting for the, this is the only thing that matters on the whole video. That's important. The add-on, of course, is Shift Q. And what I'm doing here is, this is the select menu, and this displays all the object under the mouse cursor. And we can specially select the cube, which is occluded or covered by the different objects using this. So Alt, click, select the cube. So you don't have to select hide or use the outliner. You can maximize this 3D viewport and just use the select menu. Cube, Shift H to hide all that. Okay. We're going to use the extract to create asymmetrical details. So cube, extract, X for the X-ray, and we have this. So the extracted faces after the operation becomes selected, but you have to make sure that the faces inside are also selected. So A, select everything, and then random cables, random tubes. There we go. So we have asymmetrical randomized detail on top of a symmetrical design. And we can also use this with random cables. So you're no longer limited to symmetrized design with objects that are using the mirror modifier. So after the extraction, I forgot the so the name of the names of the objects created by the extract faces operator will be the extract proxy. This is going to be just thin face. So if you want after the operation, just delete that. It's already served its purpose. So for example here, let's extract the face here. So X and create tubes. Whoops. Go to edit mode. Select everything and object mode and tubes. Okay. So we have something like that. Where's the depth? And the length. Okay. Now we have asymmetrical detail. And the source object is still selected. Then if you're already done with this, you can delete it. So there are many uses with this. So for example, in its original form in the Ice Tools add-on, this is used to create get polymesh to create a Boolean object. So in set, so it doesn't overlap with these edges here and creates a correct Boolean operation. And in the second phase, we drag to create the thickness. And since we use this for the get poly operation, it becomes the new target. And then we can quickly select this and use the Boolean operators here. Select the source mesh. It will select loop. It will extract from the applied mesh and have that. Remove hidden. Okay. And we have a very basic version of that in the random flow add-on. And we have the capability for inset. So I added the inset here just so you have the option to resize the faces. But we don't have the second phase, which is to thicken, to apply the Solidify Modifier and use it to create thickness on the object. But if you want to use this to create a base mesh from the source mesh, then extract, go to edit mode, Control F, and if you want to create thickness, solidify faces, so Control F, S, and then F9, or here, I just like to use F9, and then modify the thickness. You can see that the normal is not correct going this way, but we can just repair it quite easily using Alt N. Select everything, Alt N, and recalculate outside. So now you have your You have created a base mesh or another auxiliary design on top of the source object using by means of extraction. So the only difference is that get poly does not work with subdivision. Oh, it does. Okay, sorry. So extract faces also works with subdivision. So if you have a design that's organic, and if you want to use this not for randomization but just for extracting from the source object that you can use to further design and create another shape, then you can definitely use this. And let's go to, before we move on, let's go to wire, extract faces. Okay, select plus. Select plus is shift LMB, and shift RMB is select plus but remove the selection. Okay, and the radius of this is controlled by the select plus influence. If we lower it to something like 0.5, depending on the size of the faces, you get a smaller radius of selection. Make it larger, so 0.1, so 1, that's the maximum. And it stops at minimum angle threshold of 30 degrees or the sharp corners. It can also be stopped by I think sharp, mark sharp edges. Yes, and it can also be stopped by UVs. Where's that? Mark seam. There. So it can be limited by marked edges, sharp edges, marked sharp edges, UV seamed edges, and sharp angled edges. Now we go to select loop. So selecting loop in Blender in edit mode is, of course, you go to selecting face loop, not edge loop. So we go to, we press number 3, so you're in face selection mode. And it depends on the position of the mouse cursor on the face. So for example, if I position the mouse cursor here and press Alt, Shift, Alt, and RMB, or right mouse button, you get this. It selects this way. But if I position the mouse cursor on this edge here, which is the face slope is going this way, so it creates selected that face loop there. And it's also the same mechanics in the select face loop in a select loop in extract faces. The select loop means select face loop. I'll probably change that to select face loop. Okay. But instead of RMB, our picker will be the left mouse button. So Shift Alt, position the mouse here to select this way. This is to position it roughly at the center of the edge. So I had to recreate the behavior. It's not as as intuitive as Blender does it. So you see you can place it here and here. With the operator, you have to really get into the center of the edge, roughly at the center of the edge. So this part here, and Shift Alt, left mouse button, and also here. So roughly at the center of the edge. So for example, if I have very long edges like that, with Blender, there's no problem with whether you place it anywhere, just as long as it's closer to the edge that you're trying to uh, select the face loop on. But with extract faces, you really have to go to the center. So for example, if I use this, then it went that way. It's closer to this edge here, but it went that way because with extract faces, it's detecting this edge here instead. So instead of so if we want to go this way, then we really have to go this way and go roughly at the center of this edge here. There we go. So it's a recreated behavior. It's not as accurate as the one in Blender. See, you can position the mouse here, and as long as it's closer to this edge here, it's going to select that way. But with extract faces, it's detecting this edge instead, because the center of this edge is closer to the mouse versus or compared to this edge here, which its center is right here. So just remember that behavior, and picking the escape. Okay, picking the picking the shift alt shift left mouse button, picking the face loop, and deselecting this using shift alt right mouse button. Okay, and this is not limit. I think this is not limited by mark sharp. Oh, it is limited by mark sharp edges, clear sharp, mark seam, and also limited by UV seamed edges, but it is not limited by sharp angled edges like um, select more. So it's for example, let's just retain the cube. Retain the quad structure by disabling limited dissolve. So let's select here. There's a bit of lag at the start because this object has too many faces. As you can see, the advantage of uh, being stopped at the sharp angle, look at that, it only stays at the planar structure or the planar level of the faces. So it won't select this part here unless you manually select it. So face loop, inset, select the faces, and then create any effects that you want, and then delete the the extracted faces. Okay, so that's its main purpose, asymmetrical randomized detail. But you can also use it for many other purposes. So much like getPoly and the extract faces is not designed for high resolution objects. Do not use it for that, especially for sculpt objects with the topology resolution. With high resolution, it is not designed for really uh, high res high resolution topology. It's optimal for low to mid-res meshes. It's going to be really slow for let's see here, extract. So at this point it's going to be really slow because the object has a lot of faces. So this is already considered high res. So these operators are only optimal for low to mid-res resolution objects. Okay, just remember that. And I think that's it. If I miss something, read the change flag in the add-on folder. Let's try and open project that I did before. So that has asymmetrical detail. No, I haven't done anything that has asymmetrical detail. So this is my latest project, which is the high rise. Okay, so for example, we have, I think, the cube. Just select the cube here. Where's the cube? You can select extract faces, X. It's not working in camera mode. Oh, I've already joined the objects. Okay. So to create asymmetrical details, we have to quantify this because it's ingon. Select everything. So if you extract an ingon, because the subdivision in the randomizers only works for tris and quads, then you have to use either the grid project or quad slice to create quad faces. So for example, if we extract this face here, we need to quantify this in order for the subdivision to work. It's quad slice. Adjust the distance if you're having too many edges from stray verts. So for example, 0.001 or 0.01. And link flat faces, panels, and choose the design that you want. Afterwards, the source object is still selected, which is the extract object or proxy object. And if you don't need it anymore, just delete it. Okay. So we can extract here. For example, this one, quad slice, and create cables. Okay, so we have asymmetrical detail. So that was the problem before, creating asymmetrical detail from the mirrored objects using the add-on. Okay, so that is it, and I will release this video first, and I will be while you're watching the video, I'll be handling the shops and uploading the new version. Okay, so thank you for watching, and if you have any comments, be sure to use the comment section or the links in the description of the video. Again, thank you for watching and take care.